Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. What happens if you become disabled sequentially by a physical illness and then by a mental illness or a combination? This is the case of McEachin versus Reliance Standard. And we started this podcast episode talking about this case. So let me refresh your memory. She had two severe auto accidents in 2017, leading to major spinal surgeries, physical therapy, pain management. She developed depression and anxiety and post traumatic stress. Reliance initially terminated her benefits in October of 2020, claiming she was no longer disabled. She appealed, sent them additional information. They reinstated her benefits, saying, "You're physically disabled, but your mental health is not preventing you from working." So when Reliance reinstated the benefits, everything seemed to be going fine until they looked at her records again. And they decided to terminate her benefits after claiming that her physical condition had improved. They argued that she was independently disabled as a result of the mental illness, triggering the 24-month limitations. So, in the case, the Sixth Circuit ruled that the mental health limitation didn't begin until April of 2021, when Reliance first terminated the benefits. They rejected Reliance's arguments that the mental health symptoms earlier in her claim had triggered that limitation. So concurrently, they were running the physical and the psychiatric limitations, 24 months own occupation, 24 months mental limitations. The court said, no, we don't buy that, and found that McEachin was entitled to an additional 24 months of benefits for mental disability from the time they had cut off her benefits from a physical standpoint. So I think some of the key takeaways from this particular case is going to be your medical records. What story does your medical records tell about both your physical condition and your psychiatric condition? Now, from a physical standpoint, she had reported that she had had improvement in terms of her pain. She was more functional, including even going rafting. The physical exam findings and the diagnostic studies showed improvement. And the court agreed that the carrier was right, that there had been physical improvement and that therefore no benefits could or should be paid as a result of her multiple spine surgeries. But we also have to look at the mental health issues. What is it in the medical records that addressed her functional restrictions and limitations? And more importantly, remember, they had determined that she wasn't disabled as a result of her psychiatric problems when they reinstated her benefits. And it wasn't until October of 2020 that they had now taken the position that her mental problems from the very beginning were also a contributing factor to her disability. And I think in part that was an issue for the court because the carrier was switching gears. At one point, they're paying benefits based on the physical issues, and then they're reinstating them based on physical and saying, no, 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 no mental. And now all of a sudden, we want to terminate benefits. And while you're not physically disabled, we're going to apply the mental nervous condition limitations, even though we didn't think you were disabled because of those conditions. So that's an example of some of the dumb games the carriers can play. It's not clear from the decision what was in the medical records about her mental condition and her symptoms and functionality. But again, you've got to be cognizant of the definition of disability, occupation, and psychiatric mental nervous limitations. So you understand the parameters, if you will, the box, if you will, you're in this game. So you have to understand that. You've got to understand what's in your medical records. You've got to also understand that the forms that you fill out, that you're required to fill out at the carrier's request, your activities of daily living form, are going to be closely scrutinized together with social media. So if you're doing something that is, inconsistent with what it is you're claiming, you're going to have a problem. Now, you can also see in this case that the court was analyzing when the mental health limitation period started. So you really do have to think this out. If you've got a policy limitation that's contributed to, you certainly don't want to emphasize the mental health issues as being the cause for the disability. you need to understand that you've got to sort of, and play is not the right word, but you got to understand the parameters of the policy in developing your medical history, your report of activity. And if you have a situation like this, the court obviously is going to say, look, we're going to look at these medical records. At what point in time was the physical condition resolved? At what point did the mental health issues become disabling? Well, it's as of that date. Well, then that's the date upon which the mental health limitation period is going to start. You can see that this is a complex area and it's going to depend on the policy wording, the facts, and federal court interpretations. I can't tell you that every court is going to follow the Sixth Circuit. There are some that do, and there are some that don't in this analysis. So it really is important if there is a mental health issue in your case and you've got the caused or contributed to language, or you've got a straight mental nervous policy limitation, that you could really consult with an experienced ERISA disability attorney, kind of sort all this out so you understand the games that are going to be played at each stage, the proof that you are required to submit, and that you can anticipate what kinds of defenses or arguments that the carrier is going to use to justify a denial or termination of your benefits. Got it? Well, I thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Winning Isn't Easy. Please leave a review, share it with your family or friends, and subscribe to this podcast. I also want to hear from you. At the beginning of each episode description, you can find a link where you can send us your questions or comments, and I might even feature them in a future episode. So join us next week for another insightful episode of Winning Isn't Easy. Thanks for listening.